be still waiting for another councillor to attend, but we can make a start anyway. Welcome everyone, and thank you for attending the Finance and Performance Policy Committee. My name is Zahira Naz. I am a councillor in the Darnell Ward. I'm also chair of the Finance and Performance Committee. Today's meeting is open to the public. The meeting will be webcast and the recording will also be available for people to view later through the council's website. It is also possible that Sheffield Live TV will record and rebroadcast this meeting. Please can I request that mobile telephones and other such equipment are switched to silent as not to disturb the conduct of the meeting. There is no fire test planned for today. If there's an emergency evacuation, please take instructions from the town hall staff. The assembly point is Tudor Square. For the benefit of the webcast, please can each Finance and Performance Policy Committee member introduce themselves. So I'll start with Gareth.
Councillor Gareth Slater, Southey Ward.
Hi, good afternoon, colleagues. Councillor Eldard from Manor Castle.
Hi, it's Martin Phipps, Councillor for City Ward, and I'm Green Group spokesperson on the committee.
Shafak Mohammed, Ecclesall Ward.
Mike Levery, Councillor for West Ecclesfield and Vice Chair of Finance.
Thank you. Apologies for absence. I've got apologies from Councillor Chapman and Councillor Fox. Councillor Hurst will be subbing for Councillor Fox today. Item 2, exclusions of the public and press. There are no items that require exclusion of the public and press. Item 3, declarations of interest. Councillor Slets.
More of a declaration for interest than of interest. It's just to say I work for Openreach and there's things later on about Wi-Fi and things, so I'm just declaring that.
Yeah, Councillor Slater's previously discussed that with me. Although he has declared it, there's no formal interest to his pecuniary interest that would require him to leave the building because there's no direct impact on it.
That's fine, thank you very much. There isn't any other declarations of interest. Minutes of the previous meeting, these are on page 11 of the agenda pack. Councillor Dodd.
Thank you. I wasn't sure whether to raise this in the minutes or the work plan, but the minutes record that we were going to put the results of the task and finish group and also the equalities item onto the work plan, and I couldn't see them on the work plan, so I was just checking that we're planning to action that agreement from the minutes. Thanks.
Thank you. Fiona is off sick today, but we'll make sure that it's in the minutes and it's actioned to go onto the work plan for next time round. Item 5, we have received no public petitions, questions or statements on this occasion. Item 6, members' questions. We have not received any members' questions on this occasion. Page 1 of the supplementary pack is the work programme. Is there any questions or comments? Councillor Levery.
Yeah, just to clarify about the ethical procurement policy, I believe it says in the notes that we're waiting for a presentation in advance of setting a date. Is that the case?
Yeah, that is the case. And there isn't any updates for the work programme, but I will ask Fiona to send us any updates between now and the next meeting if there is any. Like I said, she is off sick today. Councillor Mohammed?
Am I right in thinking, Chair, we were still waiting for government to clarify their position, otherwise having our policy, which then gets changed by government policy?
Yes, there's a procurement policy statement that we're still awaited. It was when the new government came in that decided to revise it. They were out for consultation on that. I'll find out when that's expected and I'll circulate a note.
Councillor Dodd?
Thank you. Just on looking further ahead, I think when we were talking about the excellent decision that we made at the last meeting regarding council tax for care leavers, we said that we would schedule in a review of that. I think it was within a year, if I'm correct, and it would be great if we can reflect that on the work plan so we don't forget in the intervening time that we wanted to go back to that.
Thank you, Councillor Dodd. That will get noted and passed on to be onto the work programme for next time, hopefully. Any further questions or comments? Okay, so the report does contain recommendations for approval. Are we all agreed? Yeah, thank you very much. Moving on to item 8, which is a review of the polling districts and polling places, and this is on page 31 of the agenda pack. If officers could introduce themselves before you start your report, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm James Henderson. I'm Director of Policy and Democratic Engagement.
Good afternoon. I'm James Moran. I'm the Deputy Electoral Services Manager.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. So I'm going to introduce the context for this item, and then I'll hand over to James to talk briefly through the process. So the Council is required to undertake a review of the polling districts and polling places used at elections at least once every 5 years. That's to ensure that as far as possible, people are able to access a polling station that's convenient for them. It also ensures that all polling stations have fewer than the number of voters set as a minimum by the Electoral Commission. We're required by law to have the new polling districts in place for the 1st of February of this year. Which is when we will publish the new electoral register following last autumn's canvass. It's important to point out that this review is concerned only with the boundaries of polling districts and the location of polling stations. It does not and cannot change the boundaries of either parliamentary constituencies or of council wards, because that can only be undertaken by the relevant independent boundary commission. One of the advantages of undertaking a review at this point is that ahead of the summer general election, the new parliamentary constituency boundaries were formally adopted. In Sheffield, with the honourable exception of Richmond Ward, which is split between 2 parliamentary constituencies, all council wards are now wholly contained within 1 constituency. And that means that as part of this review, we've been able to undertake a tidying up exercise to remove a number of small polling districts where a small part of a council ward had previously been in a different parliamentary constituency to the rest of the ward. So in undertaking the review, we've followed the Electoral Commission guidance, and that means in particular that any polling district can have or should have no more than 2,250 in-person electors. So that's been an important starting point for our work. And during the course of the review, we've taken on board feedback received either from voters during recent elections or from elected members and from members of the public who have responded to us. And that feedback has all been taken on board, and where we have been able to act on that, we have done. In some parts of the city, as part of the review, we've looked to respond to population growth, both that has already happened and that is expected. So, for example, we've created a new polling district and polling station in the Kelham Island area to respond to the growing number, or to respond to the growth in number of voters there. In other areas, we're proposing changes either to polling district boundaries or to the location of polling stations in response to the feedback that we've received, or sometimes because a polling station is no longer available. In some areas of the city, though, it's fair to say that our room for manoeuvre is severely constrained. So there are parts of the city where there are very few suitable buildings that are available to use as polling stations, so we may have very limited choice. However, where possible, we do seek to avoid using public houses, but that's unavoidable for some areas. And although we did use some schools as a temporary solution for the general election, where our normal polling stations were unavailable at short notice, our general policy is not to use school buildings because of the potential safeguarding concerns and broader disruption to education and to work that would occur. I will point out at this point, I think James will perhaps say a little bit more about this, is that in some areas of the city we are proposing to undertake what we're describing as mini reviews over the course of the next year, where we haven't been able to take everything forward as part of this review, or where the changes proposed are more significant. And those wards where mini reviews are proposed are Crooks and Crosspool, Dore and Totley, Ecclesall, Gleadless Valley, Fulwood and Stannington, and we will engage the relevant local members on each of those as we undertake them. But we will do that to ensure that all of those mini reviews are complete by the point of the next planned local elections in May 2026. So it won't actually have any impact on the polling stations that are used in May 2026, because we will have completed all of those reviews by that point. So I'll hand over to James at that point, because I think there might be just one or two points you want to add on the process.
Yeah. So just to give a bit of background to how the review goes and is conducted. So after each poll, we receive feedback from polling station staff themselves and from voters about the suitability of the polling station they've visited, or indeed the boundaries that the polling district, the polling station serves. We feed that into all the polling district reviews that we hold, and we've done the same this time round. So this review has taken into account the polling district. Sorry, lost my thread of thought. This review has taken into account the feedback we received from the local elections in May, and then also what we received back in the Woodhouse by-election and the general election in July. We've used that feedback to inform the first stages of the review. We've also used the Electoral Commission's recommendations of, as James said, 2,250 in-person electors per each polling district. There are some parts of the city where it's a bit difficult to do that, so we've proposed in, say, Manor Castle, there will be 2 polling stations sited within the polling venue itself. Because of the amount of development that's going on in that ward, it's hard to just split the district up at the moment until all the buildings have been completed. So as an interim, we'll use, in the RA polling district, there'll be 2 polling stations in the same polling place, and the same for the RC polling district. We have to acknowledge the natural barriers that are within the city, such as main roads, railway lines, other natural things like rivers and hills. We have to be a bit pragmatic, that we can't stop hills being a problem in the city. We have to give recognition to proposed, as James said, our ongoing developments. So we've created 2 new polling districts within the city ward to take in the developments in West Bar and around Kelham Island. We've got 2 new polling stations in place, but if the report's approved, used as whenever the next election takes effect. Before we do use a venue, electoral services will go out and conduct on-site checks to ensure the venue is suitable for our purposes, that it's compliant with the Equality Act's requirements with regards to accessibility. So in this review, we did a desktop review based on the feedback, based on the figures that we got. Some polling districts, because registration increases during the general election, some polling districts inflated quite highly. So to remedy that, we've changed some of the boundaries. Again, we've tried to make sure that the more convenient polling stations have been used. So we've not just arbitrarily gone out there and said, right, it's 2,200 at that polling station and that's where the line is. We will look at whether it's more convenient for the person to walk from there to there. Once that was completed, we opened public consultation that ran from the 18th of October to the 15th of November. It was open to all parliamentary electors who were registered in one of our 6 constituencies. We also engaged with elected members, the 3 parish councils and MPs, and forwarded information and the links to consultations to Disability Sheffield and Burton Street Foundation, who then forwarded that on to any of the organisations that they work with or their clients and wider community. Submissions that we receive range from full support within the City Council ward area to in-depth alternatives to the proposed or the current arrangements. Where possible, we try to incorporate some of these suggestions into the proposals that are contained in the report. The submissions received and our responses to them were contained in Appendix A and B and C. However, given the statutory period of time left to conclude the review, it's not been possible to fully test or incorporate all of the suggested changes. Some of the suggestions that we think might be viable we think will benefit from further public consultation. So, due to the level of change proposed in some of the suggestions, it would have knock-on effects throughout the rest of the ward, so we may need to change more than one polling district and change the boundaries of the entire ward. The report therefore recommends that the Electoral Service conduct mini reviews, as James has just said, over the course of this year to test these suggestions and before bringing any new proposals to the committee towards the end of this year. We would hopefully have those implemented before we publish the register on the 1st of December. Most of the mini reviews are to test the suggested feedback we've had. The Gleedless Valley one is because I think it's the OC polling district, the polling station we used was a temporary measure. It was a shop unit on Blackstock Road. We're looking at a more permanent solution to that because the original polling station we did use is no longer available.
That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Is there any further questions or comments? Councillor Slater.
Oh, yeah, just a quick one. So thank you very much for this. Lots to go on here. There was one regarding chili pep in Southie. It wasn't available at the time you did it, but it does say in here you'd be looking at it. Is that in that mini review you were talking about, that it will come in there?
Yes, we will be looking at that one.
Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, and thanks for the work that's gone into this. It's really great. I know your team do lots on trying to improve turnout more broadly, of which this is just one part, but it's important to make sure that people can access a local and convenient polling station, particularly for those who value the on-day voting experience. So I really welcome this. I particularly welcome the point that you made earlier about trying to shift away from venues where alcohol is served. We know from residents that both for sort of health and religious reasons, there's a lot of people who are put off by that. So really support the efforts to try and shift away from that wherever possible. And recognise what you were saying about Manor Castle Ward in particular, some of the development that's going on there. Can I just check on that? Will that be included in the update following the other reviews? I know you're not doing a review as such there, but when this work comes back to us, I'm assuming we'll get an update on those matters also. And then finally, I was just listening to what you were saying about the challenges in some areas with the kind of shortage of available appropriate venues, and I wondered if we can feed that reflection into the work that's going on in the community buildings review, where we're obviously looking at a number of buildings across the city and the important role that those buildings might play as polling stations feels like an important factor in that, and particularly in places where we've struggled to find somewhere, it would be helpful for that to be passed on to that team. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Dodd. Yeah, we'll certainly make sure we're linking in with the community buildings review, which I'm aware of anyway. I don't know, James, if you just want to answer the point regarding Manor Castle and the work there.
Yeah, when the development is finished in Manor Castle, it will probably be time for another statutory review, but we review the polling districts and places every year after every election. So if it's ready at that point, we will do another mini review in Manor Castle to appoint new polling places.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the work that's gone into this. I just want to make sure that the mini reviews that are being done, today's fine, you know, this report will go through and it'll be approved, but hopefully the mini reviews, if you can bring a report back by the end of this year, I think you've said that already, just so that it doesn't impact the local elections in 2026. It makes sense that we do get an update on that end of this year. All right.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, just to confirm, we will look to do that. We're required to publish next year's register on the 1st of December. It was delayed this year because of the general election, so we would need to do it before then anyway. And of course, we'll keep committee members up to speed with that process as we go through.
Thank you very much. So there isn't any further questions or comments. So this report does contain recommendations for approval. Are we all agreed? Yeah, that's all agreed. Thank you so much. Thank you. Moving on to item number 9 now, which is the Capital Strategy and Budget Book. And this is on page 87 of the agenda pack.
afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Committee. I'm Philip Gregory. I'm Director of Finance and Commercial Services. I'm the Council's Section 151 Officer.
Good afternoon. I'm Phil Moorcroft. I'm the Business Partner for Capital.
I'm David Watkinson. I'm the Finance Manager in the Capital team.
So the report before you this afternoon is the Capital Strategy and Budget Book for 2025-26. So this is a SIPFA requirement to produce a capital strategy every year. It sets out how the capital investment and treasury management plan contributes to the provision of council services and effectively manages our risks. This neatly now dovetails with the council plan. It's also split by each policy committee so that each policy committee can see the full picture of both opportunities and challenges that face their area of responsibility. So this year's strategy follows a similar format to previous years. So there's some familiarity there for you. It's drafted on what we hope are clear and easy to understand terms. So everyone's agreed. We can see what we're spending our capital on, why we're spending it on those particular items, and the risks that we face through that capital programme. It's in line with the values of openness and transparency. So every year we continue to add more detail to potential new projects and investments as they come to light. So this capital strategy doesn't approve any particular project. These will come forward in the usual way for approval every month. It does set out, though, our direction of travel, indicating where we need to be and where we want and how we'll get there. So, as we've spoken about before in this committee, our budget position is challenging, but this strategy helps us to determine what's important for us to invest in and also flushing out those potential threats to our success. It's part of our prudential financial planning with the aim of minimising surprises and enabling us to plan for the longer term. So the report is split into different sections. These are colour-coded, so if you've got the electronic copy, you'll see them in colour. That's less impactful if you've got a printed copy in black and white, but maybe I encourage you not to look at the printed copy. The red section is the exec summary. It sets out the size and shape of the overall capital programme. So next year we're looking to spend around £160 million, the majority of which, 113 million, is on housing. The next largest area of spend then is transport, regeneration and climate change. Spend over the next 5 years is expected to be in the region of over £640 million, but that's likely to change as we get more external funding, so the potential for that to go up is significant, and we're very good actually at receiving and bidding for external funding for our projects. So the yellow section sets out the context of the capital programme. It's split down into 3 sections. So the policy environment that we operate in, the financial context, so where the money comes for, where the funding comes for, and the principles by which we spend it, and then an overview of the governance of the capital programme. The green section sets out our ambitions around sustainability and climate change, looks at both the negative impacts on the environment, which are considered as every part of, through every capital project as they progress, and sets out our ambition to reach net zero by 2030. And how we might use the capital programme to support that. The blue sections then split the capital programme by each policy committee. They set out the background for each area of spend. They look at completed and ongoing projects, and then the investment pipeline for the next 5 years, together with an overview of the unique challenges that each area faces. So this is where we try and provide more and more visibility of those opportunities and threats to be able to plan effectively for the future. So there's a lot in there, but key highlights include the regeneration of the city centre, looking at how we stimulate growth and creating a place where businesses want to locate and people want to live and visit. Looking at regeneration schemes across other parts of the city, so in particular looking at Stocksbridge, Neepsend and Attercliffe. We also look at transport projects, looking at how we promote active travel and road safety, how we invest in our housing stock and making sure that that is safe and compliant for our tenants, as well as look at how we provide more affordable housing, how we invest with our young people, looking through our youth investment fund projects to deliver new youth clubs or other projects to help keep children who are looked after safely within the city. And then looking at investing in adults that need more support, whether that's through adaptations to their properties or looking at how we support adults with complex needs. And then also looking at how we invest in green and open spaces, which we're very proud of in Sheffield. Like every other local authority, we face our share of challenges that we must meet. So we reflect on our corporate estate, our accommodation and our community buildings require significant investment. There's a paper on the town hall coming to Stratton Resources Committee later this week. You know, we've identified backlog maintenance across all of our estate, which totals over £350 million. Now that's built up over many years, and we can't afford to tackle all of that. So we need to have a leaner, more sustainable estate, which then costs less money to run and minimises our impact on the environment. That will mean there are difficult decisions to come around our estate and what we choose to dispose of. But that's our aim, is to have a smaller estate that we can afford to maintain. The schools estate faces similar condition challenges. We're looking at how many secondary school places we need across the city. There is an increase in pupil numbers, and so we're looking at how we support that going forwards. And there are also backlog maintenance issues in schools. There's extra challenges in that, you know, all schools are not the responsibility now of the council, and so we need to support schools in the best way possible. There are other challenges that we face. So, you know, we look at the town hall, we can look at the central library and the Graves Art Gallery. Both of those are significant buildings that require significant investment, and it's unlikely that external funding will cover the total cost of both buildings, and we need to look at how much the council can invest and how much we can expect to raise externally. So we don't have a huge pot of money available for capital. Capital comes largely by borrowing, and therefore we need to repay the cost of that borrowing. Where we do receive external funding, again, there are often contingencies around that and also conditions that we need to meet. So there will always be more requests than we can fulfill, but we are very good at bidding for and receiving more external funding, probably that punches above our weight in terms of what we can fund. And whether that's from Levelling Up funding, whether it's through Homes England funding, the Heritage Lottery Fund, other grants around sports facilities or social housing, that's one way that we've successfully managed to increase the amount of capital that we're able to spend in the city. So the strategy sets out how we're going to plan our work for the next 5 years. It invests in both cities and in this city and our communities, but it's also honest about the challenges that we face, and it sets the direction of travel. It gives us the ability to look at how we are able then to access external funding to help deliver the priorities for the city. So I hope that gives you an overview of what's in there. Phil and Damien are here to answer any detailed questions they might have. We're happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mohammed.
Thank you for your update. My question is around the two pie charts we got on page 98, 99, and in particular the 40 million allocated to transport and highways. That's always been a huge issue for us, for capital approvals, particularly when transport and highways have originally costed up the schemes and then come back to ask for more. So are we, I know you said there's no specific schemes coming, that's going to come further down, but are we in that position now where we've got robust systems in place to ensure that transport and highways don't come back as Oliver and say, please sir, can I have some more?
Thank you for the question. You're absolutely right. There is a risk there. That risk has materialised in the past. I think our management of the capital programme gets better in terms of getting the budgets right at the start and in terms of forecasting. And obviously a lot of those programmes are funded by external funding. We've had discussions before in this committee about the potential issues that the actual issues, not the potential issues, in terms of affordability of schemes and the challenges to the market and our supply chain at the moment. They are not unique to Sheffield, but equally that's no excuse when the schemes come in more expensively. So you can have our assurance that we're doing everything we can to manage those schemes as effectively as possible.
Councillor Livery.
Thank you, Chair. My question's on two of the budget headings, education being one. I note there's only 2.2 million in for next year and nothing beyond, which is a real concern. I'm looking at a list of projects that we're supposed to do. Obviously there'll be external funding, but have we got enough capital in there to support our schools over the medium term?
Yeah, the pie charts reflect what's actually approved at the moment, so that's the funding that we know is secure and the projects that this committee have already approved, so that's showing you what is going forward. In terms of, so other projects will come forward. We've got another £3.5 million of basic need, schools condition funding coming through. There's another 26 million of schools basic need funding for those additional places coming through. Initial estimates are thinking that's not going to be quite enough. So there will be another challenge there. But we are expecting an announcement in May, June time from the government about the next tranche. And they're hoping to give us 3 years of basic need funding announcements, as I understand it. So, yeah, so it looks like there's not a lot in there at the moment, but that's because we're waiting those projects to be worked up. But that gives you an indication of the amount of funding that's going to be available. But there will be challenges. It sounds like a lot of money, but when we've priced up and looked at the number of places that are needed and averages of average costs, there still might be a shortfall. So we're still waiting that number.
Meredith is also, thank you for that, Damon, indicated to speak, so I'll let Meredith come in.
We also have a briefing coming up for committee on schools capital, which I think is in the next week or so, and which also give you a fuller picture as well.
Okay, thank you. On communities, we're in a similar situation because there's just 1.3 million next year and it goes on to 2.6 in total over 5 years. How are we going to be funding community projects that come on, particularly capital repair stuff, which is always popping out all the time?
If I pick up on the capital repairs, you're absolutely right, Councillor. That's going to be a very challenging position. As Philip has outlined, we don't have significant money sitting in reserves or sitting in the corporate investment fund. The scale of the ask vastly outweighs the funds that we have in place. So there will be some tough decisions to take in relation to community buildings potentially, and of course not just community buildings but the wider corporate estate as well. There's been an accommodation review ongoing for the last year or so, and a community buildings review. Those should be reporting shortly, and this is the year I think that we need to start taking some action to get our estate sustainable, obviously taking into account the needs of the communities we serve.
So can I clarify that 2.6 million is committed now?
Yeah, everything that's sort of in that on those pie charts are things that schemes that have been approved. So there'll be Section 106 money that's been spent through parks and leisure on open spaces in there, and other schemes that we've got, like the Species Survival Fund, where we've got projects coming through on that. But largely, most of the parks and leisure expenditure, parks particularly, is grant funded. So until we've secured that funding, it's we don't put those things. Obviously, we don't bring the schemes forward. So that's why that spends on the looked on the low side from these pie charts.
Councillor Slater.
Oh yeah, just looking through these, page 188 regarding the insurance side of things. What are the insurance expecting that they're not getting? Do we have a value of that risk? Are we doing any mitigations? And I'm not expecting you to know all of that now, but if not, can we add it as a work programme point for the future?
So thank you, Councillor Slater. Just to add on that, I've had an update on that today. We are looking at doing further condition surveys and thermal heat mapping surveys to give our insurers the reassurance that they need. So this is an issue that we are on top of, and that will play through over the coming weeks, I think.
Councillor Phipps.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say a quick thank you for the report. It's good to see and very detailed. And I just wanted to call out in particular the consideration around climate and actions to contribute towards net zero and sustainability. It's really good to see that in every single policy committee on the capital strategy and having its own section. I just wanted to reflect that we've come quite a way on considering climate concerns over the last 5 years, and it's really good to see. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Phipps. Also, to add further weight to that, every single business case that's brought forward at every single stage also has a full climate impact assessment completed, and we're looking at how we can beef that up further over the coming year too.
Thank you. Councillor Dodd.
Thanks. To reiterate, thanks. It's a really readable and easy to engage with document on what could otherwise be quite a dry and hard to get underneath kind of topic. So thanks for the work that's gone into making this accessible both to us and to other members and stakeholders who might be interested. My questions, I suppose, follow on a little bit from Councillor Livery's, and I suppose I'm sort of aspiring towards a third pie chart that gives us like what we might need to deliver the council plan and our council priorities. And obviously that's a sort of how long is a piece of string question, because ideally we would have all the money in the world. But I'm wondering whether there's something that we can do with the Directorate Leads or others to try and get underneath or get ahead of the kind of pipeline development of what schemes we want to get funded, rather than being just responsive to the funding that government brings on stream, particularly recognising the kind of changing macro-political climate and the opportunities that there might be for us to push for things that we want to. And so sort of somewhere in the middle of a plausible scenario of if we, given what we know we want to spend money on, what kind of capital might that look like, would be really helpful for us to see perhaps in a further iteration of this.
Thank you for that, Councillor Dodd. Yes, those observations are noted. I remember a few years ago we did do something with a previous leader of the council of must do, should do and could do, and I think we ended up with over £1 billion worth of must do's, and we stopped counting there. However, I think that the capital programme has developed significantly since then. You'll have noticed in each policy committee section we have the investment pipeline sections. We've got investment pipelines in for every single area for years 1 to 5. And then some of them have also filled them in for years 6 to 10 as well. And I think that's a good starting point to see the size of the ask. Obviously, by trying to flush everything out, we think we've captured everything. And obviously, there are always going to be things that come and hit us broadside. So we will need to be prudent and try and keep money on one side. But the purpose of this strategy is to help inform what external money we are bidding for. And that's why we ask for the investment pipeline. So officers' time is targeted to delivering each of those policy committees' priorities. So it's useful feedback, Councillor Dodd, and we'll see how we can incorporate that going forward.
Councillor Hurst.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this report. I'm going to ask a question about it's a must do, but it's within the next 5 years. It's around the land for burials. It's around for investment in crematoria and cemetery infrastructures. I mean, they're obviously something very important to know. Members and officers have been working out proposals and trying to look at what's possible. And there's a very good case here, but it's completely unfunded, as you say. It's within the next 5 years, and it's looking at prudential borrowing or surplus income or new investment opportunities. When do you think you'll get an opportunity for actually sitting down and working through some of those details if you're looking to achieve goals there within the next 5 years?
Thank you, Councillor Hurst. Those discussions are ongoing with the head of service now. I'm hoping that within the next 3 to 6 months some more proposals start to crystallise. I would certainly hope that when we're here next year to look at the capital strategy again, that there are some solutions to that issue. We know that those issues need to be funded. How we go about that, those discussions are ongoing now.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the report. I found it extremely readable, and I think I echo some of my colleagues' comments on that. It was very well written, easy to understand, which is really important, especially when people in our communities, might want to have a look at this. I almost feel like, we do need to do can do, must do, need to do type exercise. Because I know a lot of this, you know already, because the discussions that we've had, when I've asked you how much this is going to cost, you can kind of just break it down because you do tend to know quite a lot. It's just really important, I think, because we do get quite a lot of requests when it comes to capital spends. And this report is really good to kind of share with elected members, but a bit of a workshop type thing, Philip, to kind of look at, all the requests that we have, but where we would like, almost like a wish list. If we did have the money, how could we spend it, but how much it would cost, most importantly.
That's helpful, councillors. I think if there's a strapline from today, is there is no money. The size of the asks are huge, and what we actually have is a drop in the ocean. That's going to be no surprise to anyone round the table today. Having said that, I hear your feedback loud and clear, and also from Councillor Dodd. I think if we take that offline, maybe we can do something with doing some maybe red, amber, greens on the investment pipelines. I'm very keen to ensure that all the policy committees are engaged throughout the year, rather than the capital strategy being a once-a-year thing. Actually get them involved throughout the year, and we can get them involved in RAG rating too. So I don't think it's a quick fix, and I think none of us are going to like the answers that come out, because everything will probably come out as red, we must do it, and it's flashing, and we've still got no money. But that's certainly an exercise we can look at to see just quite how red some of those actually are.
Please, that'd be really good, thank you. Okay, so thank you very much. There isn't any further questions or comments. This report does contain recommendations for approval. Are we all agreed? Yeah, that's all agreed. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 10, which is the Capitals Approvals Month 8, and this is on page 205 of the agenda pack. Over to you, Damien.
Thanks very much. Yeah, just presenting the additions and variations to the capital programme that have come through as part of the month 8 monitoring cycle. As usual, I'll work through them in the committee order. So under Transport, Regen and Climate Change, we've got £1 million investment in the Citadel building that SEC have recently acquired. This spend's required for immediate repairs, surveys and design around the future of the building. It's really anticipated that there will be external funding that will come to support this to meet these costs because of the economic and regeneration outputs that are likely to be delivered as a result of incorporating this building into the heart of the city, sort of enclave, as it were. Cycle storage for schools, we're looking to spend 50k to give access to safe cycle storage at up to 20 primary schools to encourage active travel. That's been made by a contribution from the Clean Air Zone revenue funding that's been generated, and again, to order to try and improve clean air outputs by encouraging active travel. The A61 Sheffield Road scheme has just secured its additional 1.1 million of development funding from the Combined Authority. And this is to develop a scheme to improve public transport all along the A61 Chesterfield Road corridor, again to encourage that move towards more sustainable travel. It's anticipated that scheme is going to come in at around 9.5 million in total, so this 1.1 helps us design that scheme and get to a stage to put in the final business case into the MCA to secure all that funding. The on-street charge point, so this was a scheme that was brought a while ago, has seen an increase in cost due to design changes that have had to be made about installing these charges on the street, which has led to increased fees and it's increased the material costs. This has been funded from our local neighbourhood complementary transport programme, so it's part of the smaller local transport intervention funding that comes down through the Combined Authority. The St Vincent's parking scheme continues to be developed. There's been another 38k of Section 106 funding secured towards that. Hopefully this is going to get this scheme into a position where we're ready to deliver it to help manage the parking around that city centre area. We're adding 30k of the local transport funding into a pot for collision reduction. And what this is actually around is where we have serious collisions that require an immediate intervention that doesn't require a lot of design work. We want to put a pot aside there to be able to just install those measures immediately and not have to come back for other approvals where that needs to be done straight away and is not of a major value requiring a large design. Levelling Up Fund at Attercliffe, we're putting in the remaining 1.8 million of Levelling Up funding to finalise demolition repair works of which were phase 1 of the Adelphi building, and to undertake phase 2, what's known as phase 2A, which is getting the building into a basic state with power, lighting, etc., bringing it to the next stage where we want to get on board with the operator that's going to run this facility when it's ready to secure the funding to deliver the major final fit-out works. Future High Streets Fund, Public Realm and Infrastructure, that's been forecasting an overspend over the past months due to unidentified stats works, so mainly Yorkshire water diversions that were found, the availability of paving and the design around the underground refuse disposal system. so that's caused delays to this scheme as well. So it was forecasting this overspend of around 1.4, 1.5 million. That's been secured now from the gain share fund from the combined authority. And in Appendix 2 to this report, you'll see the acceptance, the terms and conditions of that grant to accept to allow us to fund this increase. Stocksbridge Towns Fund, Manchester Road Hub. There is a contractor engaged in design at the moment, and what we're doing is reprofiling some of that expenditure now. So there's mostly from 25, 26 into 26, 27. So it's getting ahead and trying to get that, as we've discussed, get those budgets more realistic. So that's based on the latest contractors' profile of expected spend. Communities, Parks and Leisure, just putting some feasibility, 17k feasibility funding in place. This is so they can start design work on Richmond Park, where we're going to improve the footpath and car park. Shirebrook Valley Visitor Centre, where we'll be improving access to the disabled toilet, and a pond dipping platform at Bayton. These schemes are likely to come in at around 650k. We've got deadlines on when we need to spend the Species Survival Fund, so they want to get on spending feasibility money as soon as possible in order to be able to deliver those within the timescale. Adult Health and Social Care, we're spending 291k of a social care capital grant to purchase equipment as part of a pilot of technology-enabled care. So there's a number of products that they're looking to purchase to test before hopefully rolling them out more widely in the later end of 25-26. In housing, we're just viring some of the budget from the main roofing contract to deliver the remaining works at Haslam Crescent, which were works that we wanted to accelerate due to storm damage they suffered last winter. So there's one block being completed. This is to finalise the remaining properties in that area. Education, Children and Families, we recently approved 10k feasibility to look at upgrading the toilet and changing facilities at Waterthorpe School. This is 50k to put those works into place. We've had a rare good news story about Netherthorpe Lift coming in under budget and saving us 42k, which will go back into the education condition pot. There's been a slippage at Limpsfield and Mossbrook where we're replacing some windows and doors. There's a contractor error around the measurements on that, so they were hoping to have been installed at half term. It's going to slip into the Easter holidays, which is just into next financial year. Rowan School, adaptations to this SEND school. We're putting an extra 26.5k in for outdoor equipment where the school had identified a bigger requirement for that, and it was agreed that for the delivery of the sufficiency numbers, it was best to put that in place. So then I believe it's on to Appendix 2, where we're accepting a couple of grants. The Future High Streets Fund additional gain share funding, which I mentioned earlier, and also some City Region Sustainable Transport Fund. This is 1.2 million development grant. There's going to be 5 schemes that come forward. You'll see some of these business cases coming through in the next couple of months. So it's promoting active travel across the city centre. Total value of the grants when it comes in for the final delivery will be around 8.5 million, but this is the 1.2 development to get us to that stage. And then in Appendix 3, it relates to the Stocksbridge Towns Fund. So there's already an approved budget, capital budget, which was to fund a grant to a provider to purchase vehicles to operate the new services in Stocksbridge. So this is to passport that grant on. There will also be a revenue element to this, but that is going to be subject to a separate approval at Transport, Regen and Climate Change Committee, with it being the revenue budget that's going to be ongoing. So this is just to approve the 616k of the capital element that relates to the capital programme. I think that's everything.
Thank you very much, Damien. Councillor Shafak, Mohammed.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. I'll take one each time. It's easier. So it's on page 282. It's the cycle storage. It talks about up to 20 schools. Do we have a list or? Am I still on? Yeah. I believe there is, yes, because there was a consultation went out and the officer
in transport
Yep.
went out, so I'll double check
get us a list.
if we've got that full list of schools, because there were those that expressed an interest, some didn't want to.
Yeah.
So I think there was a selection exercise that we went through. Yeah.
Could I just make a suggestion? I did make this a closed meeting earlier today. Given some of the issues we've had around the clean air zone and people questioning what we're doing with it, will it be possible just to be able to mark or promote on these cycle storage containers? I assume there will be cycle storage funded by proceeds from, maybe that's not the right word because it brings up funding from the clean air zone or something would be quite useful, I think. Okay. And then the other question is around 287 and Fargate. Are we confident that this is the last ask, given it's supposed to be complete like soon?
Yeah.
We're not going to get another ask, are we?
No, well, my discussion, I've learned never to say never, because my project manager informs me that, yes, this is all we need to complete. It should be completing sometime towards the end of March. There are the risks that could have materialised, have materialised now, and because it's nearing completion, we're not foreseeing any other issues, and there was still an amount of contingency built into the additional ask that was made to the combined authority, just in case.
And Chair, I did have a question on 297, but I think you explained it's just a slippage of the windows being replaced in next financial year rather than in March this year. So
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Thanks for the clarity. Bye.
Thank you. Councillor Levery.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Damien. Page 284, the on-street charge points and the increase due to project delays. Now, I note that the project was approved 3 years ago. So we seem to be a long time on from when it was approved. And if you look further down, if you look at the next project, St Vincent's parking scheme, that was approved in October 2019, so that's 5 years ago. How many more transport regeneration and climate change projects are sat there, having been approved but not started or partially started? And I don't understand what the big picture is with TRC, if I'm honest, because these things are coming through in different phases. So could you explain those, and maybe is it possible to actually get a fuller understanding where TRC are with all these things that are suddenly popping up approved years ago? Thank you.
So I know that they take a regular report to committee which spells out particularly how they're using the local neighbourhood complementary transport programme funding and how that breaks down. So there are schemes there, and that's usually what we would refer back to make sure anything that they've bring forward as a programme is being referred to in that. So I think in terms of the on-street charges, so I think that was the principle of that scheme approved by TRC in 22. There was then securing the funding from OLEV, I think it was, and then when it was looked at the cost, they'd gone up significantly. So then there was work done about was it still viable, and I think that's what's happened on that one. The St Vincent's parking scheme has been part of sort of an issue that's I think been ongoing generally around trying to get agreement around the sort of the link to the Kelham and Neeps end and St Vincent's. They were brought forward initially like pre-COVID, so there was expected to be work done then, and then there was another review about, because habits changed, and so they all went through again. But there's been discussions, I believe, amongst TRC members about what to introduce, where to introduce, what sort of restrictions. So I think some of that work is still on, around the consultation about what actually to implement. I think that's what's been delaying some of this, because, for me, I keep seeing fingerfuls of spend, we need to go back and review. So I think some of those issues are playing out here. The project manager, again, says, is this going to be enough to get you to the scheme that you want to deliver now? And again, I'm assured that, this is they know what they need to do now, and this is what they want to bring forward. So,
Damien, can I just comment? Because I think we get quite a lot of questions on TRC, especially around delays of implementation. And I'm just wondering, because I don't think it's fair that we are always asking you the questions. I think TRC should get a message from our committee today to inform them that, you know, we are asking these questions, and maybe if their director could either come to a pre-agenda meeting and kind of have a conversation with us, that would make more sense, rather than us always kind of asking you the question, because, you know, I'm conscious that you're here to put the capitals through, and you might not necessarily always know, even though you do a fantastic job of explaining all of the projects, but I think they should be answering the questions, and I think we should send a kind of a bit of a strong message to them in regards to this.
Yeah, on another thing, but also to say, when we look at the 40 million committed over 5 years, and all these things are popping out all the time, you don't know whether it's been committed before, you don't know whether it's in the 40 million, you've no feel for where we are in terms of TRC and how they're spending, if you get what I mean. I just had one further question, which was on the Stocksbridge Bus Improvement Plan. So, is it 1.5 million from Simca that's been drawn down? So why wasn't that covered within the Future High Streets Fund?
The Stocksbridge buses, sorry.
Stocksbridge Bus Improvement Plan.
309.
309, right at the end.
Oh, yeah. So that's Stocksbridge Towns Fund. It's not related to Future High Streets.
Stocksbridge Town Fund, thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, it's and then like I said, there's going to be a separate decision around the revenue element of that grant at TRC, because obviously that will be ongoing support to the fare box as it travels on.
Thank you very much, Councillor Slater.
Oh, yeah, thank you for this. And yeah, I'm aware you're always the messenger, so don't worry. Page 291, the technology-enabled care trial. What are we trialling in terms of what do we consider good to look like? What's the actual things we're testing? So we can see the equipment they're testing, but not what they are testing on them. Because 291k seems quite a lot for a small trial. So just wanted to see information on what we're trialling. And then the other one, roofing. Am I correct in assuming that the roofing replacement programme 24-29 will now cover this and stop this from happening again?
So I'll start with roofing. Yes, that's the plan. I believe that they've built into, so not only is the planned work to replace roofs, but I believe they've also built into the contract this time the ability to respond to emergencies should they happen, to take things out of sequence. So I believe there's going to be provision in that new contract for that. So hopefully not needing us to require us to go out for separate procurements for things we want to do faster. The test of change, I believe that's subject to a report to Adult Health and Social Care about what they're intending to do. So yeah, it's hopefully these changes allow people to remain at home longer and reduce the need for people to probably reduce the amount of time people have to spend around that. So I've been given examples of, it will look at when a fridge door's been opened and be able to monitor things like that. So you'll understand whether potentially somebody's not been to the fridge to make their cup of tea this morning. It's that sort of work that they're looking at in order to be able to save costs and say, you'll be able to focus your efforts more on where they might be needed. So I think that's the overall direction of travel, but I believe they're reporting to Adult Health and Social Care Committee specifically on this.
Councillor Dodd.
Thank you. Just to add support to your suggestion earlier about having some sort of overview, particularly TRC, I think, David, you'll be able to remind me, there was some intention that we were going to have a joint briefing. Perhaps that was about regen. Maybe we can sweep that into TRC more broadly.
I think the joint briefings were going to be when they brief them on major schemes. They will brief this committee as well at the same time, so that you've got awareness for when they come through here. I think there probably is something about maybe just a background briefing about how regeneration, particularly in the housing area, works, and that because that was the other thing that was raised, wasn't it, around How do we look at infrastructure when we're selling property? So I think I'll take that up again, and I'll make sure that happens.
Thanks. My only comment on the paperwork, in addition to what other colleagues have raised, was on page 295, and I just wanted to pass thanks and congratulations back to the Netherthorpe Primary Lift Replacement team for managing to bring us a budget reduction rather than a budget increase, as we so often see. So thank you to them for what was no doubt some tough negotiating to make sure that was possible.
Thank you. Councillor Phipps.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Damien, as always. It was just on the transport discussions. I think that sounds like a good idea, having a briefing with presumably Tom. To be fair, on the parking scheme side of things, I think there is some sequential aspect to it. So it's possible that this is coming forward to us now because Kelham Island and Neeps End schemes recently gone in, so this is probably the next step, looking at St Vincent's. And I think Kelham Island and Neeps End was delayed for quite a while, and I think that was wrapped into COVID and things around that as well. So that's probably why we're seeing it now and why there's been such a long timeline on that one.
Thank you for that, Councillor Phipps. There isn't any further questions or comments. Councillor Shafat Mohammed made a suggestion around whether TRC committee could so any schemes that are funded by the Clean Air Zone, because there are lots of questions that we always get asked in terms of how's that money being spent. So maybe that's a request that you can also put to TRC that we've requested. So I don't know if that's possible, if it's not, but if they can, maybe even when we're looking at it through the capitals, that there is a line in there to tell us that that project has been funded by that. But if they are happy to do that more publicly as well.
Yeah, I'll speak to project manager around that, around Clean Air Zone and raise that with them.
Councillor Mohammed?
Just say the meeting I was in, Will Stewart from Highways was there when we mentioned this, so, but it'd be good to just give another reminder.
Yep, makes sense. Thank you very much, Damien. So this report does contain recommendations for approval. Are we all agreed? Yeah, that's all agreed. Thank you very much. That is the end of today's meeting. The next meeting is on this...
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Levery.
Very briefly, have we got Councillor Chapman's apologies? Yeah. You have one? Okay.
Yeah, I recorded them at the beginning.
Thank you.
I'm sure I did. Yeah, I did. It's on my paperwork as well. I'll see you all on the Monday the 17th at 2 p.m. That's when our next finance meeting is. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.